Hello and welcome to Indo World Cup Daily. Well, unfortunately, we are on the final stretch with Ireland, and this World Cup, they played their final group game against Nigeria on Monday. They've landed back to their base in Brisbane, except for our reporter, Dave Kelly. Dave, you are stranded in Perth. Have you been cut adrift?
Yeah, there's a few of us left behind. It's not quite Saigon, but yeah, if we got a helicopter or even we're out in Fremantle today, we were thinking of maybe swimming and giving that a go. But yeah, a bit of crewing issues they say over here. I think since COVID, there's been a few kind of problems, and it hit two airlines, Jetstar, which would be kind of the Ryanair of down here, and Um, Virgin Airlines as well. So I met I met a few Irish fans for the Bray Wanderers contingent there. They willingly stayed here. They're going out in the morning. But yeah, a couple of media had to divert through Sydney, and but you know we're used to be at the bottom of the food chain, so these things don't worry us. We just kind of scrub up and move on. But it just means that we're kind of not the key with these trips, and if there are any avid viewers left out there and looking at video content from myself, I mean, you always try and shadow the team. So in recent days, we would have seen the first image, I think, of Heather Payne's hamstring was on the Independent website, or certainly on my Twitter feed. And then yesterday, again, the first images of her, or 2 days ago now, being distraught and tearfully withdrawn. So you like to shadow the team you're away. That's what we're here for. So we're on the other side, virtually, of this crazily distant continent, and a bit out of the loop. But I think they are fairly light today in terms of, actually, I don't think they have anything on. They had a bit of a recovery yesterday. And Friday would be, yeah, so I think they're actually off today. So today is still Friday, isn't it? Yes, it is Friday. And then tomorrow they will be back to kind of a couple of days of the last intensity before the match on Monday. There's media tomorrow where we'll be talking to the manager, which could get interesting. And because we're not quite sure if we get to talk to her in an informal setting after the game on Monday. And as we've spoken about before the tournament, we don't know whether this could be her last game in charge of Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there that it could be interesting talking to her. And obviously, there was a lot of talk before the tournament started. There was some speculation that she'd have the contract signed before the World Cup started. That didn't happen. You know, could this be she's the first manager to bring Ireland women's team to a World Cup? But at the same time, could we be looking into this possibly being her last game in charge of Ireland on Monday?
There's a lot of questions there floating around. I mean, I don't think it's a done deal. There is a constituency that might say it has been done and is being done quietly in the background, and they're just not talking about it, and that they wanted the World Cup to look after itself. But listen, it's inevitable. It's like the GA, the last game of the championship, you ask, are you staying on for another campaign? So there will be those questions, possibly even tomorrow, because, as I say, we don't know when we're going to talk to her, and a FIFA press conference is probably not the best place to do that. So yeah, that's really an interesting kind of sideshow of this World Cup, and would have been, I think, unless they won the bloody thing, I think it was always going to be the case that was going to become an issue, like whether she would stay on, and it has been a fairly live issue since the start of this year.
Yeah, and look, every manager, has a shelf life, and we all know that. And I think the association is right not to do or announce anything. Maybe things are going on in the background until after the major tournament. But I suppose the question here is, in the hope that Ireland will evolve their style of play going forward now after this World Cup, is Vera Pauw the manager to do that? So an offshoot question of that, Dave, is could we see on Monday perhaps more flexible tactics? Will she show that she's indeed the woman to kind of, evolve Ireland's play going into the Nations League and, the next, trying to qualify for the next European Championships? Could we see that? Could we see her doing, yes, I am the right manager to take this Irish team forward?
Yeah, I mean that presupposes there's an element of audition about it, and I wouldn't have thought that. I mean, there's a natural shelf life in probably 6 years in the job, and you would think that they should have qualified for the last Euros, and didn't. They weren't as far along in the development as they are now, and the same for certain players, and it was a costly mistake, two costly mistakes, which cost them in Athens. Yeah, but in terms of the evolution of style, I mean, that just comes with having better players, and they don't have better players yet. There were players not available
Better
here.
players in better
With,
positions, though, Dave. Players playing in
uh,
better positions.
yeah, I mean, there will always be the criticism, and I think having looked at the other night, as we said the other day, could you just brought Megan Campbell and Leanne Kiernan if they were fit for game one, not necessarily week one of training, but that's kind of done now. I don't think the style that she prefers with this limited group is fit for purpose to really challenge at the Euros, because like the standard of football I've seen mostly out here, I mean, Ireland could be and should be targeting a last four spot, at least quarterfinals, but should be, because without deviating into no great Shakespeare stuff. I mean, there aren't any outstanding teams. Okay, we might see as the tournament goes on, possibly the cream of USA, England rising to the top, for example, in Spain and Germany. But of the other teams, kind of at the level below, where Ireland used to always struggle, there's nothing exceptional. You see Norway, you see Sweden. I mean, a lot of teams with reputations, and okay, they've lost two games here against Australia and Canada, but on different days with better intentions, better attacking, um, you know, better confidence in an attack from earlier, and uh, a lack of a preconceived idea, which I think again was a mistake. And I wrote today about the halftime changes, or written something tomorrow just a bit the contrast in what she's done, the manager's done, in a few of the halftime situations. They could be coming out of this group. That's the long answer. I mean, the short answer is that I think Monday we'll talk about it probably more in depth. But I think Monday could be a crazy game actually, because Nigeria aren't really capable of holding on to the ball. They're very good in transition. They're energetic, and wild, and enthusiastic, and have a belief in themselves now. And we're given that belief and confidence at half time by their manager against Australia. We watched it yesterday, obviously here because we were stranded with a few stunned Matildas fans, and Ireland have nothing to lose. They literally just have to go out and play a game. Now they said the shackles were off the last two games. They patently weren't. So I think that will almost feed into it rather than any kind of, we're not going to see a dramatic unfurling of a 4-4-1-1 or a 4-3-1-2 or a 6.5 or a false nine or any of this nonsense. I don't think we're going to see any kind of dramatic change in actual tactics, but just hopefully a not as big a leap between the kind of theory of her saying the players have nothing to fear and they should not fear situations, and the actual practice of that happening, when it doesn't always seem that they do have that freedom. And does she change a lot of players? Because Diane Caldwell hasn't played in the World Cup. She may
Yeah,
never
do you
play in the
think?
World Cup again. Does she change a lot? I mean, you could say very blithely, well, it's they're out of the competition. Let's just change the whole thing up and give everyone a World Cup cap. I mean, is that the right thing to do? Just because is that patronising? Go back to the whole thing about, is that patronising, or do you give the best possible team the chance to win, an historic first World Cup game? I mean, I think personally you do. So if a player is not capable of starting, don't start them. So there may not be kind of many changes within that, but you'd like to think that Abby Larkin might start the game. You'd like to think that yeah, maybe Diane, and just put Megan into midfield or something like that, you know, just to switch it up a little bit. You know, Anya Gorman will, you know, she'll probably go again, because I don't think, unless something dramatic happened, I wouldn't say Heather Payne's hamstring is in a good place at the moment. So yeah, there might be a couple of personnel changes there, but yeah, it's just, again, you know, it's the last game. S is a free throw, you know, just free themselves up and just go for it. But like, if they do that and they say win, you know, and they should win, they're the better team. We've got to remember that they're ranked higher than Nigeria for all their status as 9-time African champions. But and African semi-finalists, I think, last time out, 2022, and you know, Ireland should be beating Nigeria. But you know, just if it's a thrills and spills 3-2 defeat or 3-2 win, I don't think that necessarily means Vera Pauw has to take it forward, because you know, suddenly she's turned into kind of, you know, a Harlem Globetrotters type coach. She would. I think bottom line, for football reasons, I think she should stay on, and I think this Ireland team could challenge for the Euros. But there's actually a lot of non-football stuff going on at the moment, and you know, there's also a fear that some players who maybe didn't make it, or you know, were out here in training and didn't make it, that there could be the inevitable drip you get after football tournaments. It'd be quite unseemly if it happens in the women's game. But again, why should that be any different than the men's game if they're equally as serious about what they do? So there could be, you know, elements of criticism, and you obviously see that sometimes feeding back through pundits who are, you know, just very close to players in the squad. So obviously some are having kind of long-term critics, but you know, it'd be interesting just to, you know, even you know, we were talking about Risha Littlejohn the other day, and she like had a social media posting, which, you know, Risha Littlejohn is, you know, she's close to the bone sometimes what she says, but you know, she just is a little loose, a little bit salty, and possibly is that, you know, is that representative of the whole squad, that they're kind of really, you know, annoyed about, you know, or is that just maybe her kind of realizing that, you know, apart from herself and 2 or 3 others, that the standard of the squad isn't great, and they've held them back as well, because you know, you also got to remember, and maybe that's just, an argument for another day about the standard of women's football generally, but you know, like it's still not a very high standard and high quality Irish team either. It's carried by a couple of players, and like Katie McCabe obviously, and others have, like Denise O'Sullivan, have underperformed, and you know, they rely on that, and Vera Pauw said that they rely on a back five because the defenders are slow, and she said those words, and like you know, so there's a lot to hold back this team, as well as a lot that could bring it forward. So that could also influence the future, like in terms of, well, listen, you know, we need a manager who doesn't stack a defense, and may want to play a different way to kind of free up other people, and you know, the old caveat about, like, well, Katie should be, you know, left wing all the time. But you know, as we saw the other night, like that means you have to play Izzy Atkinson, and you know, without singling her out, well, we have to single her out because she was the one who played, and apart from 2 passes, she was poor in attack and defense. So you know, that's kind of the bind, and like, she plays in England, so it's not like you know, she is playing professional football, and again, a couple of the other replacements were poor as well. So you know, there's a lot to throw in the mix, that it's not always as simple as kind of, yeah, that's just you know, switch up the manager and things will change easily. And then there's the quality of players and the depth needs to continue to improve, and like, that's not going to happen overnight.
Sure isn't. Okay, Dave, we look forward to seeing what Vera Pauw says tomorrow as they count down to that final group game. And I hope you make it safe and sound to Brisbane as well.